But this is a psalm that I think we're all pretty familiar with, Psalm 51. Be gracious to me, O God, in thy true love. In the fullness of thy mercy, blot out my misdeeds. Wash away all my guilt. Cleanse me from my sin. For well I know my misdeeds, and my sins confront me all the day long. Against thee only I have sinned, and done what displeases thee, so that you may be proved right in charge, and just in passing sentence. In iniquity I was brought to birth, and my mother conceived me in sin. Yet though you have hidden the truth of darkness, through this mystery you do teach me wisdom. Take hyssop and sprinkle me that I may be clean. Wash me that I may become whiter than snow. Let me hear the sounds of joy and gladness. Let the bones dance which you have broken. Turn away your face from my sins and blot out all my guilt. Create in me a pure heart, Lord God, and give me a new and steadfast spirit. Do not drive me from your presence, or take your Holy Spirit from me. Revive in me the joy of your deliverance, and grant me a willing spirit to uphold me. So you can kind of picture David saying this after. So, and these are cookies from Satina. They're like shortbread, so they're not real sweet. She doesn't cook reading recipes. So, yeah. Got all kinds of cookies today.
Jenny had a lot of leftovers. Cooking Monster had leftovers.
Yeah.
Did Jenny make this stuff?
Yeah.
No. So good.
Oh, yeah. The stuff that's in them.
I think she made 14 or 16 different kinds of cookies this time. 32 dozen.
Yeah.
3 dozen. 34 dozen.
Yeah, we had, and then I took 2 pound cakes, and somebody else bought a carrot cake. So yeah, we ate well.
Well, good morning, Wayne Farrell. Welcome to the Sojourners class. You're welcome to be. I'm glad you're here with us. All right, so we are at 2 Samuel chapter 11, and we are going to be doing the story of David and Bathsheba.
Cassidy's favorite.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Little ditty by Jack and I. The American kids in the promised land.
You know, as I was reading this, I saw this. I've heard the stories all my life, but I don't remember when I first learned it. So I wonder if any of y'all remember when you first learned the story of David and Bathsheba.
The movie.
It was.
I remember we didn't read the Bible.
Oh.
Priest would never talk about this.
Early on, I
Serious.
I was always really interested in the stories in the Bible. So my mom, for my 10th birthday, got me a Bible of my own with my name on the front. And I sat down and just started reading through it. So I was probably like 10 about the time I got this.
Yeah. You know, and it's interesting to read it now, to really look at it now versus 30 or 40 years ago. And it was interesting to read different commentaries, depending on when they were written, as far as how the story was presented or received. Yeah. David had, we get into later in the chapter and stuff. God is very clear about what he thinks. He thinks David has done evil. But interpreters through the years, it's been interesting, and the point was made by one of them, like Renaissance paintings. How is Bathsheba depicted? She's depicted as this ravishing seductress. But there's not really anything in the story that says she seduced David.
No.
Yeah, there's nothing in the story that indicates she was even aware he was there.
Right.
He was
Right.
He was a warrior. I mean,
Right. So I'll talk a little bit about how, can I join?
I
Sure.
I forgot she was in there.
Oh, okay, yeah, come on in. So we're doing the story of David and Bathsheba today.
Oh,
That's
great.
where we are.
I know that's smart.
All right, so I'm gonna read the first couple of verses. All right. So, and it happened at the turn of the year, which a lot of Bibles might translate that it happened in the spring. Yeah.
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 Oh, I got turn in here.
Oh, yeah, you're reading the same translation that I am.
Okay.
And it happened at the turn of the year or the spring. At the time the kings sally forth, and that's supposedly a literal translation, the sally forth, that David sent out Joab. I discovered that Joab may be pronounced Joab.
Joanne.
Yeah, because I had to look up, right, who's Joab? Who's Joab? And remember, he is David's nephew, his sister, his older sister's son. That David sent out Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they ravaged the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah. And Rabbah is now in modern day Ammon in Jordan. Isn't Ammon the capital of Jordan?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what Rabbah is. And David was sitting in Jerusalem. I had some of y'all's, David stayed in Jerusalem,
Remained.
remained, right. Literally, it's David was sitting in Jerusalem. He didn't go. So, would somebody read verses 2 through 6?
I got it.
Okay.
And it happened at eventide that David arose from his bed and walked about on the roof of the king's house. And he saw from the roof a woman bathing, and the woman was very beautiful. And David sent and inquired after the woman, and the one he sent said, "Why, this is Bathsheba, daughter of Eliam, wife of Uriah the Hittite." And David sent messengers and fetched her, and she came to him, and he lay with her, and she, having just cleansed herself of her impurity, and she returned to her house. And the woman became pregnant and sent and told David and said, "I am pregnant." And David sent to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." And Joab sent Uriah the Hittite to David.
Okay. All right. So who's on the roof? Who's on a roof?
David
Yeah.
and
Just
Bathsheba.
David.
But she's on.
She's on her roof.
roof.
He's
Yeah.
on his roof.
He saw from the roof a woman bathing.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I have.
Mhm.
Oh, I
Right.
thought she was on the roof too.
Right.
I thought she was on the roof.
hey, otherwise how could he see her?
Right. Well, we don't know.
She's somewhere where she's visible. Yeah.
Well, but she probably didn't realize she was, I mean, she was maybe in a courtyard or something and he made them
Right,
looking
yeah.
down. I mean, we don't,
Yeah.
but.
And
On
not,
a roof.
Yeah, that
And
makes
his
sense.
house supposedly was on a height.
Right, so he would have been able to look down into it.
houses didn't have their own internal running water for the most part. They went
Right.
to a common pool, a common watering hole, common spring. Okay, common bathing pool. That's my guess.
But we don't know.
Depends on which movie you saw.
The artwork, the artwork through the years depicts Bathsheba's being on a roof.
Yeah.
Too. But it doesn't say that.
She pumped the water off.
Mhm.
All right, she could have
carried it up.
Servants.
servants, right?
Right.
So she could have been bathing.
Assume she
In a
comes
room?
from-
All right, so the Talmud has offered many explanations through the different commentaries to try to understand all this. And so one story was that Satan caused all this to happen. One story was David was shooting an arrow at a bird and he missed. And the arrow knocked over instead the screen that was shielding Bathsheba.
Wow.
Really stretching it.
So let's see. You have the arrow. So anyhow, another was all right, I'll get to that story in a minute. Okay. So there's lots of justifications, but it's a very direct story. There's not many details. You know, we gotta watch and see the details that we think we know, what's really in here. Her husband Uriah, the Hittite, he is part of David's elite level of soldiers. Okay. Remember, this is happening in the story when David has gathered together. He's unified Israel and Judah. He's sort of at the peak of his reign. And all the commentaries noted this is the beginning of the decline with David. And the decline has more to do with his internal family, his family, and what's going on. So that's what I was saying. Next week gets into more sensitive situations. Bathsheba. One commentator made the point, well, at least David's sexual partner was ritually clean.
But she had just bathed.
She had just apparently was at the end of her menstrual cycle, and that's the ritual.
Right.
You're considered dirty, you're
Right.
unclean. And so she had bathed, so his sexual partner was ritually clean.
Which also makes it that it had to have been his child.
Which also what?
Means it had to have been his child.
Yeah, if she
And
just had.
if she had just had her period, then if she's pregnant again, unless she slept with Uriah, then.
Well, no, one of our commentaries went into multiple pages explaining about how that yes, this was David's child, but why it would not have been Uriah's. Another one of the Talmud justifications was that for this whole situation, that Uriah, and apparently this was not an unknown practice in the time, that Uriah had divorced Bathsheba. Because remember, everybody's gone to Rabbah, right, to fight the Ammonites. So that he had divorced Bathsheba so that if he died in battle, she would be free to remarry.
Someone other than his brother.
Yeah,
Well, but I don't know.
but
that that
Uriah
would-
wasn't David's brother.
Right, but
No.
but you know it.
You're right.
And somewhere along the
Yeah.
line,
If you died,
if you died and
You
your
had to
wife
marry
hadn't
your
had a
brother.
child, she married your brother.
Oh, yeah. Right, sorry.
So maybe he didn't have a brother.
Well, but he was a Hittite, so I guess he was just following Jewish practice.
Yeah, what does Hittite mean? Does that mean he was Jewish or was not Jewish?
They weren't real clear.
Okay.
If maybe he had been non-Jewish and sort of
Converted.
became a naturalized citizen of Israel,
Mhm.
but we don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Bathsheba's name, there's lots of speculation about what her name means, but one commentator that apparently is a little more reliable about this thought it meant daughter of the seven gods, which was a polytheistic name, seven gods, yes.
I'm sorry.
Anyhow, it was a name that was a church.
She's Sheba who bathes.
No.
Well,
Oh, is that what you're
yeah, I'm saying Sheba who bathes.
logical? Yeah. That would be logical. Right,
Except
but
that's an English, bath is not necessarily bathing in.
right. So
If
anyhow,
you're
but
gonna
her
get-
name apparently originates from pagan tribes in the Canaan area, in Canaanites. Remember, the Canaanites lived in this area before when they came back from the Exodus. All right. So, but in First Chronicles, remember, First and Second Chronicles sort of tell a very cleaned up version of David's life, and it does not include the story of David and Bathsheba. In fact, the only mention of Bathsheba is in a list of David's children in First Chronicles. I think it's First Chronicles 3. It's a very long list of children, David's children, and she is listed as the mother of Solomon, but her name there is not Bathsheba, it's Bathshua. I don't know. So that's one time she's mentioned in Chronicles. In Samuel, this is the only time Bathsheba is mentioned. Up until toward the end of David's reign, when she becomes instrumental in Solomon becoming David's successor. I think that's chapter 23. All right. Okay. So David finds out Bathsheba is pregnant, and so he immediately is like, "Oh, I gotta do something about this." All right. So, and Uriah is a very loyal, and we're going to see how loyal he is to David. So, if somebody would read verses 7 through 13.
I can do that.
Okay.
When Uriah came to him, David asked how Joab and the people fared and how the war was going. Then David said to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." Uriah went out of the king's house, and there followed him a present from the king. But Uriah slept at the entrance of the king's house with all the servants of his lord and did not go down to his house. When they told David, Uriah did not go down to his house. David said to Uriah, "You have just come from a journey. Why did you not go down to your house?" Uriah said to David, "The ark and Israel and Judah remain in booths, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are camping in the open field. Shall I then go to my house to eat and drink and to lie with my wife? As you live and as your soul lives, I will not do such a thing." Then David said to Uriah, "Remain here today also, and tomorrow I will send you back." So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day. On the next day, David invited him to eat and drink in his presence and made him drunk. And in the evening, he went out to lie on his couch with the servants of his lord, but he did not go down to his house.
So twice.
So
David tries
even
to
drunk,
get him to go.
even drunk, he's loyal.
Yes. Yes. The first time David provides him with a catered meal,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't go home. And David gets him drunk. Right. So, and also, I don't know if you guys remember, I've forgotten this, early on with David and them, that the practice, when we talked about this before earlier in Samuel, that the fighters, when they went to battle, abstained from sex during that time. So Uriah's just being loyal.
He's being a good soldier.
A good soldier.
He's being a good soldier.
Mhm.
Right. Right. All right.
I think the belief back then was that you were a more potent fighter if you hadn't had sex. You were, you were
had all
angrier
the
and you had all
energy.
that.
You
That's
weren't
possible.
distracted. You
I
had
mean,
that-
that's
Professional athletes, the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Not
probably. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So if somebody would read 14 through 25.
I can get it.
Okay.
The next morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by Uriah. He wrote, "Put Uriah in the front line where the fighting is the heaviest, then retreat and let him be killed." So while Joab was besieging the city, he sent Uriah to a place where he knew the enemy was strong. The enemy troops came out of the city and fought Joab's forces. Some of David's officers were killed, and so was Uriah. Then Joab sent a report to David telling him about the battle. And he instructed the messenger, "After you have told the king all about the battle, he may get angry and ask you, 'Why did you go so near the city to fight them? Didn't you realize that they would shoot arrows from the walls? Don't you remember how Abimelech, that's as close as I can get, son of Gideon, was killed? It was at Tebez, where a woman threw a millstone down from the wall and killed him. Why then did you go so near the wall? If the king asks you this, tell him your officer Uriah was also killed." How far you want me to go?
Up to 25, through 25.
So the messenger went to David and told him that what Joab had commanded him to say. He said, Our enemies were stronger than we were and came out of the city to fight us in the open. But we drove them back to the city gate. Then they shot arrows at us from the wall, and some of your majesty's officers were killed. Your officer Uriah was also killed. David said to the messenger, encourage Joab and tell him not to be upset, since you can never tell who will die in battle. Tell him to launch a stronger attack on the city and capture it. Ho hum. Ho hum.
And see, mine says destroy the city,
Uh-huh,
not just capture it, just.
story, right, yeah, wait till later. We
Overthrow
got,
and-
in the next chapter, what happened. So, yeah, so not only is Uriah killed, but some of David's best soldiers, to set things up. So these soldiers were up against the wall of the city, which, they knew from, because that story about the woman flinging the millstone from the wall came from, I think, from Joshua or one of the other earlier stories. But so so David sends him, and then Joab too. I want to go back and rethink, remind us about Joab. Do you remember the earlier story about Joab with Saul's Saul's kids and the ones that he stabbed, and Joab stabbed him in the belly to get rid of them?
Same Joab.
Yeah, same Joab, right? Same Joab. So, and so Joab is he's pretty fiercely loyal to David. His goes the nth degree. So that he also, so to be loyal to David, but there also are indications he wants to be sure he stays in a position of power as well.
This is for the consigliere.
Ah, yeah. So anyhow, but and the messenger picks up, just enough of what's going on, to how he words the message to David. And this letter to David probably was not folded and put in an envelope. It probably was a scroll tied with a piece of rope, or maybe it might have had wax on it to seal it. So there was something else I wanted to say. Wrote it off. Let's hope it floats back. All right. Anything anybody else wants to add about?
How come you didn't have me read the last verse?
26 and 27.
Yeah, there's
27.
some more verses.
Right, because I was going to read those.
Oh,
There you go.
okay.
Right.
Never mind. Be quiet.
They're another part of the story. So, all right. So speaking of those last two verses, and Uriah's wife, Bathsheba is still being referred to as Uriah's wife, heard that Uriah, her man, was dead, and she keened over her husband. How
Mourn.
Made lamentation.
Yes.
It's that wailing they do.
Uh-huh.
When someone dies.
And the tradition was you mourn for 7 days. And we're going to see that again in the next chapter. David sent and gathered her into his house, and she became his wife. And she bore him a son. And the thing that David had done was evil in the eyes of the Lord.
Yes.
I'm amazed at the 7 days.
Did you mourn me for 7 days?
I've known you for 7 months.
Oh,
It's true love.
7 years?
That's real. It's real.
I'm You got more in a week, I'd be.
Hey, Tom. Tom, take what you can get. Yeah.
7 days is pathetic.
7 days is nothing.
Well, if you, in those days and times, life was different.
That's true.
And if you sat around mourning for more than 7 days, you aren't gonna have any food to eat.
Well, that's true.
Gotta
Yeah.
get back to
You
work.
know, yeah, you gotta get back to work, right?
Yeah.
So I remembered what floated off.
Say it quick.
Floated back. All right, so why would this story be, David has multiple women, multiple concubines. So what's the surprise,
Because he stole her from another man.
And he orchestrated that man's death.
Yeah, he had the man.
And other people.
Right. All right, so here's one thing that the commentators, because earlier in the Samuel stories, there were times when we read passages and you could sort of like, well, this passage doesn't really fit with this one. What's going on here? That it was just different pieces that had been put together. We're now into a stretch where the narrative seems to be more cohesive. And so it's often the author of this stretch of Samuel is referred to as the court historian. It's like somebody's there in David's court, keeping a journal
Mhm.
and writing the story down. So usually these kinds of stories would be pretty low key. But apparently it was not. Is the speculation that it was pretty commonly known throughout the court what was going on.
Well, those guys that he sent to bring her over to him probably shared that fact.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's like
Yeah,
gossip.
Sure,
Yeah.
everyone
There was-
realized he sent them into a suicide mission too, so.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Something that strikes me, because you don't, there's one aspect of this you don't see very often, at least I don't in the Bible, and that is defining her as beautiful.
Mhm.
Okay, that's an adjective that's not used very much in the Bible in the Old Testament. Okay.
Yeah, but there's nothing that says she seduced David.
No.
In fact, I
Even
think
though much of the
think
tradition
you
about the
remember
story is.
Well, it's just like the tradition is that Mary Magdalene was a
prostitute.
prostitute.
She was.
And there's nothing in the,
There's nothing to even suggest that.
no.
The priest told me that.
Well, yeah.
Well, I think what's interesting is that, like in today's world, this is a Me Too moment. I mean,
Yeah.
she was actually, in my opinion, raped. I mean,
Yeah,
she did
someone
not
in
have.
power.
she
He was
didn't
more
have a say.
powerful. And
Yeah.
she had to do what
She had to do
wanted.
what he raped her. I mean,
Yeah.
and she got her pregnant. So.
Yeah.
But in
And
the
the kid
days
paid
of
the
yore, she was the seductress.
And not to mention all the other soldiers who died with him, they now have widows
Yeah.
who are now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So,
So what's, yeah.
in this,
Yeah. So it's a
since the
ripple
Me
effect.
Too, I think the majority of us probably see this story from a different perspective. Because this is really the first time I've sat
That's
down
right.
and looked at this story, probably in 30, 40 years,
Mhm.
But so it's to see the details that I thought were part of the story are
in
not
there.
in here. And how it gets depicted. I think I've mentioned in here, there was a novel that came out. You remember Joseph Heller? He wrote Catch-22,
Mhm.
the novel Catch-22. He also wrote a novel based on David. It was called God Knows. And I read it back. That was quite enlightening for me to read, that whole different perspective. It was an interesting novel that's still out there. I'm sure it still is. But yeah, he depicted David and Bathsheba as this passionate love story. We don't know.
Well, it was a good looking man, right?
Right,
She could have been
right,
enthralled with him.
Well,
right.
my actual
So
translation,
we don't know.
my translation actually says he made love to her.
Well, yeah, you've got that book.
It's sort of like,
Right one.
it's sort of
I knew one of the translators. The translators were one of my college professors.
He's a good guy.
I don't know if he worked on that passage.
It does say that he made love to her.
Well,
It's
you know,
not-
it doesn't matter. You know, if she was beautiful, it doesn't matter if she was a seductress or he was a rapist or whatever. God said it was wrong
Yeah.
and he suffered the consequences for it.
Yeah.
Right,
You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we can get all caught up
Yeah.
in
right.
whose fault it was and who did what to whom, and it was wrong. And so often the cover up is what gets you. Even today, he committed wrong and then tried to cover it up
This is a
instead
bit
of coming right out. It's like a modern day
Yeah.
All
story.
right, so the next chapter.
Well, this is a bit ambiguous because my last sentence is, but the Lord was not pleased with what David had done. Not being specific about what that done is, whether it was Bathsheba, Uriah, whatever.
Yep. or all of
Okay,
it.
it was
Yeah.
All of the above.
all
Yeah.
all of it together.
Because in the next chapter, it's spelled out.
Cool.
Yeah. This is the part of the story that I had forgotten about. You know, all right, so if somebody would read chapter 2, right, because this is the second half of the story of David and Rose. Yeah,
12.
chapter 12, sorry. Chapter 12 verses 1 through 16.
Okay, I'll read it.
Okay,
The Lord sent Nathan to David when he came.
remember Nathan was a prophet.
Right.
When he came to him, he said, "There are two men in a certain town, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle. But the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb he had bought. He raised it, and it grew up with him and his children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him.
This cracks me up to read it.
Yeah.
Now a traveler came to the rich man, but the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man and prepared it for the one who had come to him. David burned with anger against the man and said to Nathan, "As surely as the Lord lives, this man who did this must die. He must pay for that lamb 4 times over, because he did such a thing and had no pity." Then Nathan said to David, "You are the man. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I anointed you king over Israel, and I delivered you from the hand of Saul. I gave your master's house to you, and your master's wives into your arms. I gave you all Israel and Judah. And if all this had been too little, I would have given you even more. Why did you despise the word of the Lord by doing what is evil in his eyes? You struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword and took his wife to be your own. You killed him with the sword of the Ammonites. Now, therefore, the sword will never depart from your house, because you despised me and took the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your own. This is what the Lord says. Out of your own household I am going to bring calamity on you. Before your very eyes I will take your wives and give them to one who is close to you, and he will sleep with your wives in broad daylight. You did it in secret, but I will do this thing in broad daylight before all Israel." Then David said to Nathan, "I have sinned against the Lord." Nathan replied, "The Lord has taken away your sin. You are not going to die. But because by doing this you have shown utter contempt for the Lord, the son born to you will die." After Nathan had gone home, the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife had born to David, and he became ill. You want me to keep going?
Yeah. Okay. So Bathsheba is still identified as Uriah's wife. So Nathan tells this parable. And I thought it was just people.
First parable I remember hearing in the Bible. Is it
In
the
the
earliest
Old-
parable?
But the commentators recognize it as a parable.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right. First one in the,
Old
oh, there's probably others, but a few, but not, there aren't as many in the Old Testament as Jesus used.
Yeah.
Right. But, so, and David instantly becomes angry at the man that took the ewe from the poor man. Nathan has to be very direct with them. You are. So,
Mhm.
and interestingly, David does not try to argue with.
No, he owns that.
He does. He doesn't argue with Nathan or with God.
Now earlier, David was talking to God, right? Earlier.
Yes, trying to get it
How
to,
come God's not talking directly to Nathan, not Nathan, I mean, David was talking to God, right? Early on. Why isn't God talking directly to David this time?
David wasn't
David-
talking back.
David was not receptive.
Maybe he wasn't listening.
He wasn't listening, yeah. If he had been listening, he
Big
wouldn't have.
theological question that
If his
Why do you
heart were
think-
open to God, he wouldn't have done what he did.
Not a lot of things.
Right. But let's see what David does next. Anybody want to read verses 16 to the end of the chapter?
David.
Okay.
All right.
David therefore pleaded with God for the child. David fasted and went in and lay all night on the ground. The elders of his house stood beside him, urging him to rise from the ground, but he would not, nor did he eat food with them. On the seventh day, the child died. And the servants of David were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, while the child was still alive, we spoke to him. He did not listen to us. How then can we tell him the child is dead? He may do himself some harm. But when David saw that his servants were whispering together, he perceived that the child was dead. And David said to his servants, is the child dead? They said, he is dead. Then David rose from the ground, washed, anointed himself, and changed his clothes. He went into the house of the Lord and worshipped. He then went to his own house. When he asked, they set food before him, and he ate. Then his servants said to him, what is this thing that you have done? You fasted and wept for the child while it was alive, but when the child died, you rose and ate food. He said, while the child was still alive, I fasted and wept, for I said, who knows? The Lord may be gracious to me, and the child may live. But now he is dead. Why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me.
All right, can we stop there just for a minute?
Okay.
Okay. So just as an interesting Hebrew kind of thing, where the servants are talking, about, hey, this child's died, but we're really scared about telling David. And David asked, is the child dead? And they said, he is dead. In Hebrew, there is no word for yes. That's what Alter says. That there is no word for yes. So that's why there's he is dead. Interesting. I don't know. That was an interesting thing too. Wow. Yeah. So, all right, so Jeff.
Okay. Then David consoled his wife Bathsheba and went to her and lay with her, and she bore a son, and he named him Solomon. The Lord saved him and sent a message by the prophet Nathan, so he named him Jedediah because of the Lord. Now Joab fought against Rabbah of the Ammonites and took the royal city. Joab sent messengers to David and said, I have fought against Rabbah. Moreover, I have taken the water city. Now then gather the rest of the people together and encamp against the city and take it. Or I myself will take the city, and it will be called by my name. So David gathered all the people together and went to Rabbah and fought against it and took it. Took the crown of Milcom from his head. The weight of it was a talent of gold, and in it was a precious stone, and it was placed on David's head. He also brought forth the spoil of the city, a very great amount. He brought out the people who were in it, set them to work with saws and iron picks and iron axes, sent them to the brickworks. Thus he did to all the cities of the Ammonites. Then David and all the people returned to Jerusalem.
Okay, so going back to verse 24. Now Bathsheba is referred to as David's wife after the child has died.
One thing says that Solomon was the fourth son of David.
Oh, the fourth is of David and Bathsheba?
That's what it says. It said Solomon was the fourth son of David and Bathsheba. Therefore, several years had passed between the death of their first child and Solomon's birth. Bathsheba may still have been grieving over the child's death.
Huh.
Even
And
though
in
she gave-
Chronicles, he's listed, I think, as the fourth son, but not of David and Bathsheba. It lists son by both this woman and by this woman, by this woman. I'll be darned.
That's all. It doesn't go into any explanation, just says
Right. Right. Yeah, interestingly, because it said, and she named him, she bore a son and called his name Solomon. Traditionally, it was the mother that did the naming. Right? And Solomon's name is thought to come from the Hebrew term shaloma, which means peace. So Solomon would then mean his peace. Right? And then Nathan's name for him, Jedediah, means God's friend.
Okay, go back to verse 24.
Uh-huh.
She bore a son and called his name Solomon, and the Lord, and God did what?
it says the Lord loved him.
No,
The
so I
Lord
got
loved
the love the boy.
Okay, I thought somebody said something different.
Yeah, no, and the Lord loved that little Solomon. Yeah, so it could, it's, it's one sentence, so it, the first reaction is, oh, just a big, 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 but it could have been, commentators mentioned it would have been a period of time. Going back to your thoughts about David and how he reacted to the child's death and his wound. Everybody was really nervous about how he was going to react. And David instead, like, okay, bring me food. He bathed himself, anointed himself.
A very practical reaction.
Right.
You did everything you knew to do while the kid was alive. Once the kid's dead,
Nothing more he could do.
Right. Except have another son.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe he just accepted that this was in fact God's punishment, and he had tried to, when he was doing all the fasting before the child died, maybe he was trying to go back and forth with God about, please spare this child. But once the child died, he's like, well,
The Chosen did a really good job of this story. I'm gonna do a plug. If you haven't seen The Chosen, watch it.
Is that the chosen? Or was it?
I think it was The Chosen.
It was
No.
the chosen.
How could it be that the Chosen covered the Old Testament anyway?
Well, because Jesus lived, they do flashbacks.
Oh, okay.
They're doing flashbacks. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So how did they depict all this?
Very much like the story says. But I'm remembering specifically is the mourning of the child and the fasting. I'm remembering that scene.
And these were hard times. You
Yeah.
made the comment that if you didn't get up and move on, you didn't have anything to eat and you eventually died.
Yeah,
Because, they didn't have the luxury that we have to sit about and mourn. Life was hard. You got up and you had to provide for yourself. And I mean, he was king, so other people were going to bring him food and stuff, but still, it was all right. Life has to go on. You don't have the luxury of years of mourning. I did the 7 days.
Right. Okay, so the last part of this chapter, Joab battled against Ramah, verse 26, captured the royal city, and he sends a messengers to David. I have battled against Rabbah. Yes, I captured the citadel of waters. Because remember the very opening of chapter 11, the kings sally forth. It's battle season. Now, winter, it's too rainy and muddy, too hard to get around. So the kings are out there. David's not out there.
Yeah.
So Joab is like,
He's the armchair, David's the armchair general.
at this point in time, you know, because he's been out
He
there.
used to be up.
Yeah, he used to be out there, but he's been sitting at home, you know? So, so now David gets up, goes, captures, he assembles all the troops, captured it, and he took the crown of their king. All right, so some translations may have a name that starts with M. This
That's
is verse
Milcom.
30. Okay, so that name was the name of the god for Rabbah. All right, for the Ammonites, their lead god. And so some commentators thought that it may have been like a statue of Milcom.
Alcoholic.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and so David may have taken taken the crown off that statue. That's one theory, you know. So it was set on David's head. Booty brought out in great abundance. And David immediately put everybody to work doing stuff. So anyhow.
The crown weighed 75 pounds.
Oh. Yeah, it had a big precious
Like,
stone.
hey,
on it.
having that on you.
Yep, it had a lot of precious stones on it too. So
It'd
75
be built like a linebacker.
Yeah, you have to be. Right, because what, even the crown of England, well, it
It's
weighs,
22.
Yeah,
it weighs a lot. I don't think it weighs
I
75.
think it was way back when Ahmad Rashad's first alignment is no next.
Yeah.
So I'll leave you guys with this question. Why do you think, this is a question to ruminate on, if you want to say something, you got a couple minutes. Why do you think the story of David and Bathsheba was included?
They had to figure out where Solomon came into play.
I think also they need to show how David's family is gonna fall apart and his other sons are gonna turn on him and there's the strife from within that Nathan prophesizes about.
The Old Testament is full of stories where, you know, you're doing well when you're following God, and then, you know, it's like you get the power, you think you've got it all, and you stray from God, and then you see how it falls apart. And I mean, the Old Testament's full of that.
And God
Stuff, and
uses
it's just-
broken people.
Yeah,
You
And the
don't have to be
consequences.
perfect. He uses broken people.
David is a
Very
amazing
broken.
example. Yeah.
And their consequences, ripples that we don't even see.
Yeah.
When we commit a sin, I just recently read an article about victimless crimes, and the point the scholar was making is there is no crime that has no victims, that the ripples that go out from any wrongdoing affect people that you had no idea.
Yeah.
The ripples were going to reach out and touch those people because you made that decision. So.
So go and ponder this.